Imagine waking up one morning, only to realize that the person you once trusted, the person you once loved, wants you dead. Not in a metaphorical way. Literally. Someone has hired a stranger to end your life, and you have no idea why, until the pieces start falling into place. This is not a movie. This is the terrifying true story of Susan, a woman whose husband plotted her murder, an intricate plan fueled by obsession, jealousy, and greed. And somehow, against all odds, Susan not only survived. She fought back in a way that no one could have imagined. By the end of this video, you'll be left asking yourself, how far can desperation push a person? And could you survive if someone you trusted tried to kill you? Michael was 58 years old and living in Oregon, but life hadn't been kind to him. Married to Susan for 17 years, his world was crumbling. Slowly, painfully, and predictably. Susan wasn't happy. And why would she be? Michael, despite his age, had never really been a husband. He never took her out. He never spent real time with her. And to make matters worse, his sense of humor, well, it was questionable. Imagine leaning in for a kiss, and instead of affection, you get a burp in your face. That was Michael. Charming, right? Susan was independent, successful, a nurse who earned more than Michael, who worked as a janitor at an adult video store. But Michael couldn't handle that reality. He tried to control her spending, micromanage her life, and constantly remind her of his importance in ways that only pushed her further away. By 2005, after nearly 2 decades of marriage, Susan reached her breaking point. She told Michael she wanted a divorce. Michael was devastated, but instead of processing his emotions, seeking therapy, or even attempting genuine self-improvement, he went down a darker path. He came up with a plan, so horrifying that it could only exist in the most twisted corners of the human mind. They agreed to a trial separation. Susan would stay in the house, and Michael would move out to live with his father. But Michael's life quickly unraveled. He lost his job at the adult video store. His father kicked him out. Suddenly he had no income, no home, and no sense of purpose. And then the idea came to him. If Susan wouldn't be with him, maybe she could just disappear. But it wasn't just about love or revenge. It was about money. Their house, valued at around $300,000, was in both their names. If Susan died, Michael would inherit everything. And suddenly, murder wasn't just a thought, it was a solution. Michael couldn't carry out the act himself. That would be too direct, too messy, and too risky. Instead, he turned to someone who could. Someone from his past who had experience in this exact dark business. Ed was a former co-worker and an ex-convict. He'd already spent 9 years in prison for hiring a hitman to kill his ex-girlfriend. He knew the ropes, the risks, and the thrill. When Michael approached him, Ed didn't hesitate. He wanted in. $50,000 changed hands, and a chilling plan was set in motion. But here's where the tension ramps up. It wasn't just about money. This was a test of nerve, of cunning, and of sheer human instinct. Michael, thinking he had orchestrated the perfect crime, had no idea that Susan was about to prove something extraordinary about human survival. It was 2006, the night of the planned murder. Michael set the stage. He left a note for Susan, telling her he was away at the beach. It was supposed to provide him with an alibi. Meanwhile, Ed prepared himself for the hit. But preparation didn't just involve strategy. It involved cocaine, an unnerving ritual of nerves and adrenaline. High and dangerous, Ed made his way to Susan's house. Susan returned home. Something felt off immediately. The house was dark, too dark. Shadows stretched across the walls. A quiet tension filled the air, an invisible weight that told her something was wrong. And then Ed appeared, a hammer in hand, silent, deadly. "Who are you?" Susan demanded, her voice trembling but sharp. Ed didn't respond. The struggle began. What followed was 14 minutes of pure, unfiltered chaos. Susan, caught off guard, initially thought he was a burglar. But as Ed struck again and again, she realized the horrifying truth. This man wasn't here to rob her. He was here to kill her. Using every ounce of her strength, Susan fought back. She wrestled the hammer away, smashed it against him, tried to choke him, and even bit him. Every bite, every hit, every desperate move fueled by the raw will to survive. Ed was strong, high on cocaine, and violent. Susan was fighting for her life. But what made this story unforgettable was her ingenuity under pressure. She searched for any identification on him, anything that could connect him to someone who had hired him. Every action calculated, every movement driven by the knowledge that her life depended on it. Exhausted, bruised, and bloodied, the battle reached its climax. Susan's adrenaline surged one final time. She grabbed Ed, leveraged her body weight, and put him in a chokehold. "Tell me who sent you," she yelled. "I'll call an ambulance for you, but not for me." Her words were desperate but controlled. She was no longer just defending herself. She was demanding accountability. Ed struggled, fought, but ultimately succumbed. Susan had survived. The would-be assassin was dead, and the woman who should have been a victim had turned the tables completely. Susan ran to a neighbor's house and called 911. Police arrived and began piecing together the horrifying truth. Ed was connected to her husband, Michael. The plot, the planning, the horrifying intent, all traced back to a man who thought murder could solve his problems. Michael was arrested. His mugshot captured the cold desperation of a man who had gone too far, a man who had underestimated the power of a human will to survive. This story is more than a crime report. It's a chilling reminder of the extremes of human behavior. Obsession, greed, and entitlement can push people to unspeakable acts, but courage, resilience, and instinct can overturn even the most calculated plans of murder. Susan survived not just because she was lucky, but because she refused to give up. She fought with every fiber of her being, and in doing so, she rewrote the outcome of a story that could have ended in tragedy. So here's the question we're left with. How far would you go to survive? Could you outsmart someone who came for you with deadly intent? And when desperation drives a person to commit evil, can justice ever be truly guaranteed? The world is full of stories like Susan's, chilling, shocking, and almost unbelievable. But remember this, survival isn't about strength alone. It's about courage, wit, and refusing to give up no matter how impossible the odds seem.